Welcome everyone to another episode of the Old Timers Comic Book Show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. As always, joining me and my fellow old timers, it is the Professor and the 13th Crusader.
What's up, Johnny? What's up, Mike?
Yo. Yeah, well, NFL season still ticking along. In Nowheresville, let's get some free agency. Let's see some stuff happen. As it is, I'm just sick of reading about Tom Brady's injury. So, I'm up to my back teeth of Tom Brady. Anyway,
was he injured?
Well, did he deflate his arm? I don't know. He did something.
He was having his knee deflated all season.
Yeah, was he? Yeah, certainly not his ego. All right, okay. On that note, enough football talk. Today's show, it is crossover time. 13. Whose idea was this?
One of my childhood friends reached out and asked if we could talk about some crossovers between, publishers.
All right, and the name of said friend, so we can hurl abuse his way for making us read these books.
Hans Arunatige.
Ah, there you go, Hans. Thank you very much for this really cool topic. It is. I am joining. We've had good fun looking at some of the books and the kind of ones that we like. Should we do this? No. Should we do that? No. So, it's a good call. Mainly because I get to talk about British comics for a little bit. Yeah. So that's pretty cool for a change, it appears. So for everybody else out there who's listening to the show or watching us on YouTube, thanks to the power of StreamYard, get in touch. If you want to see us cover a topic, by all means, get in touch. Just remember, got to be at least 25 years old. All right? Okay.
The comic has to be 25. You don't have
to. Yeah. You can be like 8. I don't know. The old timers, please talk to us about when Daredevil dated Black Widow. All right, okay. We can do that.
That is a good topic right there.
Yeah. What can I say? Yeah, and on topic for today. So cool. Right. So when we talk about crossovers, there is a bit of a professor. There's a bit of a granddaddy. There's a bit of a granddaddy, a little bit of an elephant in the room when we talk about this. You cannot talk publisher crossovers without talking.
Yeah, you talk Marvel DC, right? So Marvel crosses over with DC. It's always a big event. We're not talking about the most important one, I think, or the best one, which was the JLA Avengers crossover from 20 years ago, and it's not 25 years old, so we can't talk about it. But
talk about the premise.
Yeah, no, you know what? Yeah, I know. We argued about it. Well, I argued about it a little bit because I think that we should talk about it because it was a book that was in the making for 20 years before it actually came out. The plot was done, the art was mostly done. It just was never published. For 20 years, and that was from the relations between DC and Marvel. Sometimes they're okay, sometimes they're not that great, and that a lot of that reason is why we haven't seen a Marvel DC crossover since this, because the relationships really have soured, and there really is. Behind the scenes, there are people that kind of were making things like this happen. Like a Mark Gruenwald, who was largely responsible for the Marvel versus DC that ended up with Amalgam, if you remember that from. We're not talking about.
Do not be swearing like that sort of language on this show. Amalgam. What you get? What's your?
We're not talking about that either.
Damn right, we're not talking about that. Ugh.
But this was in the works for 20 plus years before it ever came out, and to have an artist like George Perez do it, and writer, was it who was the writer? Busiek, I think.
Yes. Yep.
So this was what everybody wanted to see, but little do you know, 20 years before, there were more Marvel DC crossovers than I even knew there were. And when we talk about crossovers, not Marvel DC, basically I knew Batman crossed over with everybody, right? I mean, Batman was teaming up with the Ninja Turtles, and he was teaming up with just about anybody that would license him. So
He's a publishing whore.
he was he was the bat prostitute. So
you can't say words like that. Well, yeah, you could actually. I don't mind. It's
fine. And then but the little unknown crossovers, and I thought that I picked the one that I picked that we're gonna do. I forgot about. I really forgot about it. Like, I totally forgot about it. But so it's not.
So just for you, there you go. There's. Is that the Perez Superman doing his stuff? Avengers JLA style.
That's the Avengers Endgame Superman.
Check that out.
Yeah.
So refresh
that
our
was the beginning game, not the end game.
So how was he able to hold the hammer?
He's Superman.
Yeah, but is he worthy?
If he isn't, then who is?
Really?
Well,
is that well good? We're not actually going to give the right answer as to why Superman's holding the hammer.
If it was the classic Justice League members, anybody from DC should be able to lift Thor's hammer, because all those superheroes were all better than everybody.
True.
Even Snapper Carr could lift the hammer.
Yeah, I would stand by that. Sure.
Give over.
They were not fallible. DC heroes were not fallible back then. Right.
So the for those that are shaking the head, going, really, Professor?
Yeah.
Yes. The hammer. The hammer. Odin. Did Odin not take off the spell that said you had to be worthy? Therefore, anyone could lift the hammer up. So therefore, Superman did. That was the way they got around it.
Well, the other thing too that's interesting is it's also magical. So how would that make Superman stronger?
It makes for an awesome cover, though.
Yeah, it totally does.
Yeah. I will say that how's everyone hold that shield like that? They're holding it like it goes on your arm, dude.
He doesn't really need the shield, does he? I mean,
it looks like the way that Cap would hold his shield in the old Cap cartoons from the 60s.
Yeah. Oh, bless. Yeah. There you go. Cool. All right, so we are going to talk about three of the stories you probably may not remember. Actually, I think that's a fair. I think, although to be fair, one of them is pretty much a classic. But
can I make a comment on why you won't remember most of these?
Yeah, sure.
Because there's the licensing agreements between Marvel and DC and basically anybody. I mean, you can't collect them in a trade paperback. You can't reprint them. So, I mean, where are you going to get these stories?
That's a good shout. And thanks to some fantastic research done by me, I'm going to tell you where you can get these.
All right. A little foreshadowing, guys.
Well, there you go. As always. So we're going to start off with, what are we going to start off with? We're going to go with Mr. Marvel himself, and possibly even Mr. DC to some extent, although maybe not as viable, I suppose. We're going to go with Darkseid versus Galactus. All right, and this is brought to you by the mighty John Byrne on pencils. He also wrote the book, and it's got Rick Taylor on colors. There are no credits for letterers, so good luck with this. Where can you get this? I hear the professor ask. Well, on a certain auction site, of which still doesn't sponsor us, which is bang out of order. You can buy this for the princely sum as a one shot, which it is, at £12.99 up to £20. There you go.
That's interesting.
I found prices for all these books that we're going to talk about today. So.
I would like to shout out the color separators, which was Electric Pickle.
Okay.
I'm sorry because I just love the name, but this came out in 1995. This was kind of very early in digital color separation. So I think that the artwork here, John Byrne's art. I can't imagine anybody that's not really a huge fan of John Byrne's art. Maybe Johnny, it might not be, but
well, you know. I was going to save it, but for me, this book is the best and the worst of John Byrne.
So, and I agree with you. I agree with you because for he does a lot of like the Kirby crackle in the background, and
Perfect.
it's almost like he overdoes it, you know. And
Massively.
but the thing is I don't know if that's because of the color separations, you know.
Mm,
And so a lot of this artwork like is almost hyper detailed with his pencil and his line work. And I mean I love John Byrne, but here he's almost too detailed in the facials and all that stuff. And it was almost when I was reading it, I was like, man, you know, this might have been an instance where less might have been more.
great.
And you know, I love the story. If you actually read through the entire story, where Galactus now, the one of the premises of most of these Marvel DC books was something that I didn't really expect, was that in these crossover books, it's just assumed that Marvel and DC's characters all coexist in the same universe, and running into each other was not really a big deal, right? They didn't have to explain it away. And here you get Galactus and the Silver Surfer come to Apocalypse to, you know, Galactus eats planets. He comes to eat Apocalypse. And Darkseid basically says no, and it that means it's a rather simplistic story, right? I mean, it's a story we've seen 100 times. Galactus shows up, he tries to eat the planet. Darkseid and Desaad send Orion versus Silver Surfer, which is a basic, you know, good guy versus good guy kind of a battle. They don't really do a lot of exposition, a lot of explanation as far as why this happens. It's the ending that I love, where Galactus basically wins and says, "Okay, I'm going to eat your planet now," and then realizes, "Oh, wait, this is a dead planet." Which I don't know why you couldn't tell from when you got there. You know, it was just rock and lava, and there's no plants or anything. Like he couldn't tell that already. I'm pretty sure that Galactus probably should have had some kind of a, you know, like a herald, like the Silver Surfer, to find a planet full of life. So that was.
you say you've stole my thunder on that one. You stole my thunder. Yeah.
But I mean, it did lead at the last couple of pages to a little exposition and a little explanation of why Darkseid is the way Darkseid is, and why Galactus is the way Galactus is. And the way it ended, and Galactus takes off into space to find another planet, and then Darkseid leaves. It was a very anticlimactic, but fitting. And I enjoyed this. This is the kind of stuff that I like. Byrne, big characters, big action, lots of life. He did kind of like, you know, I was looking for some Kirby homages there. He does kind of bring out some of the Kirby third world stuff. The Kirby, like I said, the Kirby crackle right there.
Yeah.
You know, way overdone. It's almost on every page you find a Kirby crackle. But it was, this to me was it was interesting, and it was not what I would expect from a Marvel DC crossover, where, you know, you would expect Superman to fight Spider-Man.
Okay. All right. 13th. Darkseid Galactus. What do you think?
Well, yeah, first off, you know, whenever you see John Byrne's name on anything, you automatically assume that, you know, you could expect something pretty good. So the fact right off the bat, you know, I would say he's probably more known for his art maybe than his writing. But then again, it depends on, you know, but either way, he's mastered both crafts. So that's awesome. The fact that he had gotten permission to use these characters, you know, from each other's playground. So that was pretty good. And you got one guy pretty much putting this together. But it's what I like about it is it's pretty basic. Like Bud said, it does show you origins of the new gods and the origin of Apocalypse. So for those that maybe were just loyal to one publisher and never really got exposed to DC, that was good. But then it's also vice versa, where later in the book you'll get the origin of the Silver Surfer and how he came to be and who Galactus is. So I thought
Yeah.
that was a good introduction point for those that may have been loyal to just one publisher. So
Mhm.
I am a proponent of publisher crossovers. Although unfortunately, to Bud's point, we really don't see much of this anymore, and it's a shame. But you have creators working for one publisher, maybe jumping ship to go to another. Maybe some of the relationships were soured where they were coming from, and I think all of that just contributes to kind of that gridlock that you
Mm.
have between the major publishers. For other ones, um, kind of like what you said earlier, Bud, with Batman, pretty much being pimped out to be showcased along with another character would actually benefit the other character for smaller publishers. So
Yeah.
Mm.
um, that's how I got drawn into Batman and Grendel. To be honest, that was my introduction to Grendel. So if it wasn't for that, I would never be, the
Mm.
Grendel fan I am now. But back to this book, again, yeah, it's very simple. You get to see or be introduced to some of the basic elements of the New Gods characters and things like that. They're a little what their nature is, but
Mhm.
ultimately, this is a Darkseid and Galactus face-off, if you will.
Mm.
And I love it mostly because, from the surface perspective, this is before he ever visited Earth. So
Mhm.
right off the bat, this is supposed to be a story that took place eons ago,
Mhm.
rather than the classic, Norrin Rad Silver Surfer showing up on Earth and rebelling against Galactus. So I kind of like that from here. But yeah, no, it's a good book, and I do own it. I don't see why anyone shouldn't own it. Again, you don't see too many of these crossovers, so the fact that it's these characters like Galactus and Darkseid, these are big names for each publisher.
Mhm.
You just didn't wake up and expected to see these two characters interacting in comic book pages, so it's all
Mm.
good.
Could it have hurt them to paint pants on Galactus? Because that's like the worst look for him.
I agree. I I thought about that. Like, why is he wearing a summer outfit?
Yeah.
Well, well, he's the Eternals. He can wear what he likes. Plus, he's like 60 feet tall, so don't look up. That's all I'm saying.
Don't rebel against me, surfer. I wear the pants around. Oh, wait a minute.
No skirting around the issue. All right, okay.
Oh boy.
I read this book, and this is 95. So John Byrne has had his at this point in time, he's had his flare up with indie stuff. He's done his Next Men. It's ran its gauntlet. It's done its volume ones, done and dusted. So now he's back to doing the mainstream stuff. Starts off with this. It's Galactus Darkseid. You could argue that Darkseid Thanos is probably a better shout than Galactus because he is just kind of a bit of a one-trick pony. The conceit with crossover books is that both houses have to be equal. They have to pair off, don't they? They have to be. Nobody truly wins.
Yep.
Because nobody's going to concede that Superman's better than the Avengers or Batman's better than the Hulk or whatever. So there's always that kind of conceit that you've got to play back to. And I think, if anything, that spoils this a little bit, especially the ending. I mean, I agree with Bud that the ending where you get the speech about you do what you do, I do what I do, and that's kind of the way of the universe. Yeah, I like that bit. That bit's really good, and it has resonance with the characters. But how did the surfer not know that Apocalypse is a dead world? He says pretty much the exact same thing, as he flies across the surface. He's like, "Oh, this is what a desolate planet this is. It's all blah blah blah. There's no emotions." And yet he says, "Oh well, we'll just stop here and eat anyway." It's like he's not thinking like, "Oh, it's a dead planet, so therefore, nobody's going to die." So my conscience is clear because, as 13 said, this isn't the conscience-filled surfer that we're dealing with. This is just a pretty much go out, find me a planet, and crack on. So I was kind of a bit disappointed by that. the Kirby stuff, the Kirby influences, they are great to see. John Byrne, I don't know if he think, he took Fantastic Four back to the Stanley Kirby era style, if not in art wise, and definitely in the kind of dynamic between the characters. Is he trying to Kirby here? Probably. I don't know. I don't know.
So what's the alternate ending for this? You think Surfer got reprimanded me? You idiot. We're crossing this planet off my list.
I believe in one of the appearances of Galactus, maybe a second appearance was where they inked him without pants. They did give him like shorts, so that might actually be on purpose and a shout out to old Kirby. But
I
who
would have.
knows?
I mean, I would have liked the bigger threat. The bigger story would have been if he comes across New Genesis.
Agreed.
Yeah, and then somehow along the way, Highfather and Darkseid offer up Apocalypse, knowing full well that he's not going to get anything from Apocalypse because it's a dead world. Galactus is annoyed by the subterfuge. New Genesis disappears, hidden by the source wall, and then Galactus has to go on his merry way. That sounds like a better story than Galactus coming across a dead planet thinking, I'm just going to rest. It's like going to a McDonald's, finding out that they've got no burgers, and then sitting down to order a Big Mac.
Yeah, I agree with you because, New Genesis and Apocalypse, they're warring planets. But you would think that the plot would be Darkseid somehow goading or convincing Galactus to, hey, look at this place, New Genesis, full of power, really rich in flavor, whatever you want to call it. But the source wall is what bigger power is there in DC?
And it's up to Orion, even if Galactus comes across New Genesis first, it's up to Orion to be the instigator of throwing Apocalypse under the bus, therefore bringing Darkseid into the fold, into the battle. That would have made more sense than the actual fulcrum of this particular story.
Right.
For me.
The only showdown I agree with here wholeheartedly, believe it or not, is Surfer versus Orion. I definitely think this would make a lot of sense, their showdown. And this isn't the free will Surfer either.
No, exactly.
So I think that was good because he wasn't holding back. And I think that was pretty accurate. But a real showdown with Darkseid and Galactus, yeah, I don't know. I don't. Darkseid is, and we've said this when we covered the Legion. He's just a force of evil. Can you really destroy Darkseid?
Right.
But we know that Galactus can be. I don't know. It's a tough one, but I don't think Darkseid could be destroyed. As I do think that Galactus can die. He even says it in the book that. I'm just going to keep on eating to live because I don't know what my purpose is. So if you don't eat, you die.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've killed off Galactus a couple of times anyway. So
right.
Just so we're aware, though, if Marvel and DC are listening, the Professor, the 13th, and I own the copyright on that story. We just created it right now. Just saying. All right.
They decided to retell it.
Yeah, send royalties. As to the general idea, the consensus, I suppose, of the fact that crossovers don't tend to happen so much nowadays. Do you know who I blame for that? The cinematic universe. The characters have become too big. And I think the companies that own the comic companies, because remember, Disney owned Marvel, AT&T owned DC, and for now at least, until buyouts go on later this year potentially, and they don't want Batman and Spider-Man to meet. They don't want that. They want to have their share of the box office, and they want theirs. And comic book characters, the big ones, the big two ones, some of them have become multimedia icons, and you just don't want to mess with that.
Yeah, so. It's all dollars.
Yeah, I might venture to say, I'll go on a limb and say that I would think that the late 70s and not early 80s through the late 90s were maybe the golden era of crossovers.
That's a good shout. Yeah.
Well, that's what kind of makes me. That's what made me laugh when they were talking earlier this year about DC and Warner Brothers supposedly maybe selling the comic book rights to Marvel for Superman, Batman, and all that.
Mhm.
And
Again.
yeah, but when you think about it, you're exactly right. The movie studios would never let that happen. You know, I mean, they would. Warner Brothers has that. There's Superman, Batman. There's too much money to be made in the movies.
Right.
I think Warner Brothers, AT&T, and Warner Brothers would throw the comic book division under the bus in a heartbeat if they could keep the film rights.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
We'll see. I think we'll see them cease publishing comics before we ever see them stop making movies. So, sorry, Johnny.
Stop publishing comics. Yeah, me too, but still. All right. Okay. 1 down, 2 to go. Should we take the break? We'll take the break now before we get to 13's choice. Let's see. We've got a choice. Here we go, guys. I'll give you the choice again. We've got Flipside Focus. You've got the Jank Think Tank for Magic the Gathering. And we've got Crisis in the Toyverse. So which one do you want to go with?
Well, let's go with Flipside Focus because we always listen to Crisis on the Toyverse, but I think let's go with the indies.
All right, so here we go. Flipside Focus. Roll VT.
Let me ask you a question. Are you wanting to read a new comic book that has nothing to do with the big two? Are you tired of looking through countless titles and have no idea where to begin? Well, don't you worry, because the Random Dude Josh and Johnny the Machine Hughes has the podcast for you. Flipside Focus, only on the Undercover Capes Podcast Network.
There you go. The most recent episode of Flipside has an interview with Owen Hammer, creator, writer of a series called Von Bach, in which an undead monster who's been used for movies sues the company for identity fraud. Class. Brilliant. So go check that out only on the UCPN. All right, excellent. So we have been waiting quite patiently, and it's time for the 13th choice. Let me just dig it up because it is a classic. We're going with Marvel. Where's my notes? Marvel Treasury Edition number 28. It is Superman versus Spider-Man. There you go. This retails at around $40 up to $153.
Mm-hmm.
What a bonkers number that is. But there you go. Okay.
Yeah. I can tell you right off the bat, as far as the value, the treasuries now are one getting harder to find in good condition.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because the way that they were stored in the retailers, it was kind of cumbersome for them. So if they sat on the shelves too long, it messed up the condition. But you can still find them. They're just getting harder, and they're definitely getting a lot more expensive. That's for sure.
Well, younger listeners, can we explain what a Treasury Edition is?
Sure. So a Treasury Edition is like an oversized. So you've got like your standard comic book. A Treasury Edition is that. It's like it's not quite. It's bigger than A4, not quite A3, but it's like big, and you read it like that.
Super difficult to store.
Yeah. If you've got one, it's going sideways down the side of your comic book box. It's not standing that way. All right, so it's bigger than the Black Label books that you get currently from DC. So there you go. Right, creators. So this is written by Jim Shooter, art by John Buscema, who's fantastic. Figure inks. So the inks for the bods are by Joe Sinnott. Then for background, you've got a very deep breath. You ready? Terry Austin, Klaus Janson, Bob McLeod, Al Milgram, Steve Loyola, Bob Layton, Joe Rubenstein, Bob Wycheck. Whoa.
And Walt Simonson.
I did write that down. I just missed him. Letters by Joe Rosen, colors by Glenn Swen. That is a shed load of creators.
Yep.
I will go out on a limb and say this probably is my least favorite John Buscema art that I've seen in quite some time, because I think Buscema is better on stuff like Thor and things like that. But 13th, this is your call, so take it away, my friend.
Yeah, so right off the bat, the cover, it's a pretty iconic cover. This is probably the most recognizable classic Superman and Spider-Man book that you'll find. This is not their first venture together. That was reserved for the Superman versus Spider-Man Treasury book, which is their first meeting. Actually, the first crossover between both publishers. But here they are again, and this really takes me back because as a kid, the advertisement for this book during this time was in like every comic book. Like they really did a lot of like advertising to say, look, we're going to have Superman and Spider-Man team up. Look who the villains are going to be. I was like, I got to get my hands on this thing. And right off the bat, when you open the book and as Johnny read off all those creators, isn't that like, that is a legendary lineup, literally legendary.
That's
like
Murderer's Row, that isn't it?
Yeah,
no
that's
doubt
true.
about that. I mean, you can't go wrong with anybody that had their hands in this book, and all legends in their own right. It's like a Hall of Fame listing. So, unlike the book that we covered earlier, where John Byrne was really at the helm mostly with what he did, here you have literally a team up of creators that have worked for both publishers. So it's the fair warning for the younger viewers. This is a long read.
I think
Very
Jim Shooter
long.
got paid by the word for this book.
I hope Joe Rosen did.
Yeah, exactly. I can we say that he had the toughest job of all? Like, how long is this going to? Can we get this done by tomorrow? I don't think so. But what is refreshing though, it keeps the the characters in their classic elements, and what I mean by that is like this is the classic Spider-Man, and you're going to see the classic Superman. You're going to see the classic Doctor Doom. Again, his name is mentioned on this show. You can't go wrong with Doom. You could put him in any story. Here's proof of that. So who's going to be the big bad for Superman and Spider-Man? Who else but Doctor Doom? And then you throw in the Parasite for fun, which I thought was an interesting choice, especially for this era where you would think a guy who could siphon off Superman's power would be a formidable adversary. So I was like, I have to read this, as a kid. And, going through it now, it's like, yeah, this is classic Peter Parker, his life, day in the life. All the characters, all their personalities are all intact. That's where I think this flowed very well. Like the list of creators that worked on this, they've worked on these characters numerous times. So they knew how to handle these. And that's another thing with these crossovers with publishers. Like, yeah, we got to keep everything fair and square, but you also don't want to lose what you're showing the audience. Like you want them to feel like you're really reading a Superman comic, that you're really reading a Spider-Man comic.
Good
So
shout.
I thought that was very, very good. And you'll find more evidence of that when, it kicks over to the day in the life of Clark Kent, all the characters that surround him in a regular Superman comic book at the Daily Planet. So it was great. The plot to kind of get all this together, I felt interesting that, Doom is trying to convince the Hulk to get Superman's attention. What's the Hulk good at? Smashing everything. So classic Hulk being drawn here, and it's really the first time you see these guys lay hands on each other, and there's iconic panels in here, and over the course of time, this would not be the first time that these two guys had a showdown. But as we mentioned in earlier shows, the pre-crisis Superman was immensely powerful, and you'll see that on full display here. Pretty much just letting the Hulk tire himself out.
Yeah.
So in this era of time, this could have been a very realistic showdown, in my opinion. Nowadays, and what we've seen, I have some questions about that. But here it was like, okay, this is it. A berserk, not a berserk Hulk, but an enraged Hulk trying to knock Superman down. Just didn't happen.
Mm.
But I felt that sold me. I'm like, okay, we know the Hulk's the strongest there is, but this is Superman now we're talking about.
Mm.
So I thought that was a good shout out to the creators to recognize that they didn't embarrass the Hulk. So that I think that was also important.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
So, but yeah, again, that's what really entranced me with this book was just how the characters remained within their core personalities. And Doom, a very wordy Doom, it made me laugh. I'm like, holy cow! Like, we know who you are, Doom. He's like refers himself to in the third person in almost every panel.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's overwritten, but I think the Hulk says more in this comic book than he said for the entire run.
Yeah, yeah, and there are some surprises in here as well, which I thought was also awesome. Not only do you get like not a cameo, but of the Hulk, but you also get Wonder Woman in here. So at this
Mm.
point in time, this was great for DC. This was great for Marvel because you want to showcase Superman, you want to showcase Wonder Woman, the Hulk, and Spider-Man. Remember, at this time, like these characters were just super, super popular. They got their own cartoons back to back on top of it. So this was
Well,
actually perfect.
they were on TV too. Hulk show, Spider-Man
Exactly.
show. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So this was it. Like, I don't see how any fans from back then would not be excited for this, as wordy as it is and what have you, the classic art look. Um, to me, it's very, very well done. And
Mhm.
again, like I said, it's harder to find treasuries nowadays in general. But if you do come across this one, definitely give it a good look and think about it because this is getting harder and harder to find, especially in really good condition. But overall, a good story. It makes sense. You have to have it make sense. They're not explaining, oh, like when we covered um, He-Man and Superman, there's no
Yeah,
dimensional rift. This is just like, I'm going to fly over to New York and I'm going to swing
yeah.
on over to Metropolis. So I
Yeah.
like that. You don't need that kind of fancy explanation. Just do it.
Here's a question then. Then we'll go with Professor first, then jump to 13th on this.
Sure.
With the amount of different creators that are involved in this book, and cast your mind back across all the various other kind of crossovers we've had, is there any kind of alternative publisher or alternative writer artist that you think, hey, you know what, you do this character better than the regular team do?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that because I think having John Buscema do Superman and Wonder Woman was almost like bringing them into the Marvel universe, right? That's
Yep.
that's kind of the whole message I get from here, seeing Buscema's work on all of Superman's supporting cast, and just the fact that Marvel's artwork was so kinetic at the time and so action packed. I think maybe it might have put DC's art studios to shame a little bit with just the amount of detail in this book, the inking of the backgrounds, which that's where the Murderer's Row comes in, right? Because you have
Mhm.
Sinnott that inked all the figures, but then basically a who's who inked the backgrounds. I've never seen backgrounds look this good, and I think there's like page 3 or 4 where I think it's might have been Spider-Man swinging over the city of New York. I don't think I've ever seen a better New York skyline, like over the top. And I'll stop you when you get to it, but I just thought, no, keep going. So I thought it was amazing and kind of, yeah, right there, the helicopter over the city. I don't think I've ever seen the skyline look that great, and there's so much detail. I was like, they spent a lot of time, even though it's covered up a lot by words. It looks good. There's no wasted space. Look at the backgrounds that, you have J. Jonah Jameson, Robbie, but there's posters on the wall. There's filing cabinets. There's desks. There's nothing wasted. John Buscema spent a lot of time on this book, and it was obvious.
Yeah, Johnny, what you were saying. So that's something I talk about a lot with my buddy Hans, who gave us the idea for this show. That who would have handled these characters better? Which publisher? Without a doubt, when you read this particular example, right? In other books, maybe you can make the argument at that time, maybe one publisher would have handled it better. But here, right here in the now, in this book, there's no, without a doubt, when you read Doom, it's Doom. It's Marvel's Doom. You know, to Bud's point, I agree wholeheartedly that this had a touch more of Marvel than it did DC, and that's evident with the way Superman was drawn. Even the way he was more noble, it almost felt like the script was more of a Captain America-ish, if you will. That's how I took it. The Spider-Man, yeah, I mean, he was more of a, he's always been a loser in real life, but I think Marvel had to be the driving force behind that here. So the Parasite, I felt more that I think either publisher could have handled that character with ease. He's pretty basic. You know, I'll take your powers away. Okay, woo. In either universe, it's still gonna, or either publisher rather, it's still gonna be the same.
I have a question? So this is like 1978, right? So
Yeah.
up until this point, has anyone ever drawn Wonder Woman to look so sexy in a fight scene?
Have a look. Where's she at? There she
There's
is.
I think there's a full page spread of her and Spidey, but
See if we can find that for you. Just flipping through the book.
maybe, I don't think that was. She's not in it anymore. I don't think.
So
So maybe it's the. So anyway, I just. I like just these panels where with Buscema drawing Wonder Woman. I don't think she's ever looked so good.
Yeah, I could say that.
You know,
excellent. I think it's interesting to see the different publishers take on the different kind of styles. I think
she actually looks tall like an Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just an interesting point because you kind of think some of the situations that the heroes can't find themselves in are absolutely massively similar. So it's interesting. I will say I'm not totally sold on Buscema on this book. I think his more mature stuff is better. His Thor stuff that we've looked at before, some of his Conan stuff is a lot better than this. I think this caters too much to the. I can't believe I'm going to say this. The mainstream crowd. But Doom looks like Doom. Oh, look at that, a £9 page. I don't think he suits Spider-Man. I don't think Spider-Man suits him. Maybe, I don't know. I think Buscema draws too muscular to get away with Spider-Man.
He did a good Superman, though.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree there. I just like my Spider-Man more.
Except his head was Thor without the blonde hair. But
yeah, cool. It is. I don't know if it's the reprint that we're looking at, but the colours look a bit dark for me. But I don't know if that's the reprint that we're looking at.
It's funny you said that, but because there's a splash panel of Superman here, almost a full splash panel with Superman leaving the famous closet, and you look at Superman's face. That is literally Thor with dark hair.
Is that the? I think I just saw that. We saw that one earlier on, wasn't it? Where was that? Boom, 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 boom. Where is it? There it is.
Yeah.
There you go.
If you look at Superman's face, that is totally Thor.
Yeah, just put the hammer in that right hand. You're there.
Yep. Yeah, that's. I mean, I just couldn't get over it when I was reading it, but it didn't affect my enjoyment at all. I thought it was good.
So, all right, which one's better? Which Superman Spider-Man book is better?
This one.
Is it this one, or is it the first one by Jerry Conway and Ross Andrew?
This one, 100%.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think in this one, we get a lot more story. We get Superman and his whole supporting cast with Peter Parker and his whole supporting cast, and they do like a Freaky Friday thing where they kind of switch. And Superman is working with the Daily Bugle, and Peter's working with it's not the Daily Planet, right? It's Galaxy.com or something silly like that with Morgan Edge. And I thought that was actually a pretty cool. I was like, okay, they're all interacting with each other's supporting casts, and I thought it was it kept me interested in reading the book. So
cool. There you go. Excellent. There you go. Good call. Everyone is chuffed with that one. So the last one Last one's my choice. And I went a kind of little bit, I went a little bit British on this one, I'm afraid. And this nowadays would be a Black Label book, purely because it's scary as. This is the classic Batman Judge Dredd Judgment on Gotham, written by Alan Grant and John Wagner, art by Simon Bisley, and letters by Todd Klein. This currently sells in various states of gradingness around 8 whole English pounds. So it's not a huge purchase for anybody, but essentially you get, and I've been saying it a while, you get the Batman Who Laughs. Wait, sorry, I mean Judge Death. I always get the two mixed up. Don't know why. I don't know why you'd think that I would get, let's say, Judge Death and the Batman Who Laughs mixed up. I mean, it's not like they're very similar with some sort of crown, portcullis face mask and a grin of teeth, is it? No, not like that at all. So anyhow, Judge Death, one of the dark judges, infiltrates Gotham, comes across Batman. Batman takes him back, or chases him all the way back to Mega City 1, where he comes across, of course, I am the law. I'm not who's the improv guy? 13th, you must be able to do an I am the law quote from Stallone.
There you go.
There you go. Cool, excellent. Runs afoul of Judge Dredd, as gets help from an almost proto Harley in Judge Anderson, and together they team up to take down Judge Death from Mega City 1 and so forth. All right. Professor, what did you think of this?
So I don't not have a lot of exposure to Judge Dredd. Just wasn't a character that ever really appealed to me. So I didn't read a lot. I mean, I've read some, but not a ton. And the Simon Bisley I've been exposed to is from Lobo back in the 90s. Which I mean, I love the cover artwork, and then there was the couple of miniseries that he did. So I did like Bisley just because he was so different from anybody else that was on the stands at the time. Here, I think it definitely works for the Judge Dredd type of story that it is. Batman seems like a fish out of water, I think, a little bit. And as far as it's like story wise goes, it's kind of again maybe kind of a simple story. Batman goes here, chases bad guy. You have Judge Dredd with Judge Death and Batman, and they write in Scarecrow, right? So you have a good guy and a bad guy, good guy and a bad guy. They each chase each other, and they end up in Mega City 1, and then they end up back in Gotham, and then you think Batman and Judge Dredd might come to blows, which they kind of do at the beginning, but then at the end they kind of grudgingly, I guess go their separate ways. Judge Dredd seems to me to be a lot like the Punisher. Was he kind of like the Punisher?
So Judge Dredd is very much in Mega City 1. Judge Dredd is the law. He is the policeman. He is the jury. He is the executioner.
Okay,
so
but
if you do something wrong, he can walk up to you, arrest you, sentence you, and then do whatever the next crime is. So if you drop litter and that's 10 years, you get 10 years. Yeah. If you do something bad like kill someone, then he can kill you. It's that simple. But he's not a vigilante. It is the legal law system of Mega City 1.
So Frank Castle would fit in well with Judge Dredd if he was
if he was a cop, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, in Mega City 1, Frank Castle would be a cop, right?
You would hope so.
Yeah.
If not, he'd be a vigilante and then suffer the same shtick that Bats gets in this.
So I guess my bottom line is I don't think the story is as important here as Simon Bisley's artwork. It's beautiful. Just to kind of look at it, each page. You almost get the story just by you don't even have to read it. Just look at the pictures and kind of keep going. I think Batman looks really cool. Definitely taking some tips from who is the guy that is it Kelly, the guy that draws Batman with the ears like that, and Brayfogle.
Yeah, so Kelly, Brayfogle,
Yeah,
Bernie Wrightson.
yeah.
All of them.
I mean, he looks good. He looks good. There's one splash page that he actually gets to draw all of Batman's kind of rogues in there, and it's the only Joker you see in the whole thing. But yeah, I actually think that page you could put that on your wall. That's like a poster.
Yeah,
So,
if you want nightmares.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it looks great. So,
yeah. All
I
right.
enjoy it.
Okay, so at the time, Alan Grant was writing Batman for DC after a successful stint at Detective Comics. He was supposed to be going over with John Wagner. John Wagner bailed. John Wagner is the creator of, or co-creator of Judge Dredd. So, 13th, what was your take on Judgment on Gotham? Did you buy it the first time around?
No, I did buy it later on, but I can say that this will be a weird review for me. I actually didn't like it. Really?
Are you in the Marvel universe? Are you in the Marvel universe right now? Is that what happened there?
No, it's just, you know what it is, like I'm not a fan of the artwork. To be honest, I felt like I get how it fits Lobo. I get how it could fit the Judge Dredd world. I don't know, I just wasn't sold on the Batman. Like it's
okay.
Like you could look at the opening pages with the Batmobile, it's like way over exaggerated. And even like the early Batman splash pages, yeah, that's a very familiar stance for Batman by Bisley here. It's a lot of people know that image of Batman. I just don't. I just never really found Judge Dredd to be appealing in the first place. And yeah, and like reading this now, I totally am. The Batman Who Laughs ruined it for me. I could not get the Batman Who Laughs out of my mind. And yeah, I can see where the idea for this came together, because when you have a judge, jury, and executioner all in one shot person, representing the law, how does that conflict with Batman's vision of law and justice? So I can see that. I can see how the worlds could kind of mesh together. And yeah, you can force the characters to work together. Maybe it's not that difficult, but just the artwork really just made me turn away, to be honest. And I hate to put it that way, but I don't like to talk too negatively of books, but this was just not my cup of tea.
I think this book is very much aimed, and this isn't aimed at an insult at all, but it would be a mature book nowadays, wouldn't it?
No doubt about it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Your 12-year-old's not coming home with Judgment on Gotham. Purely, I mean, Judge Anderson's naked some of the time. This Catwoman on the splash that the professor mentioned looks gorgeous. But there are elements in there. On top of that, you've also got the horror elements going on there. Scarecrow's in it, always a freaky character to start with. You've got Machine Head there with just one arm, and of course Dredd and Death and how it's all stylized. I agree that the art is a little bit. What's the word I'm looking for?
It's hard to digest for me, to be honest. That's how I looked at it.
You've kind of, for me, I like the art, but you've got to warm to it. It's not something you can just glance at, I don't think. How you can like glance at a comic book and go, oh yeah, what's going on? I think this is kind of the opposite. I think you've kind of got to invest the time and energy to get the most out of the art. It is aimed at mature readers, although look out for the bunny rabbits and the unicorn. That's all I'm going to say.
And like I said earlier, I think this was done to bring more attention to Judge Dredd, because Batman really doesn't need the attention. But then also, this is not the first time that these two have paired up.
Okay.
With Judge Dredd and Batman, so there are more Batman Judge Dredd crossovers.
Okay, cool. So this is back in 1992. So Batman had just come off his Batman Returns glory, just before Batman the Animated Series. So Judge Dredd in the UK, Judge Dredd is the mainstream comic book company in the UK. or 2000 AD is, and Judge Dredd's one of the characters. So you've kind of got to deal with that, I suppose. Is it equal footing? Maybe
Well,
not.
well, if it's Batman Returns, then it's still much in the Tim Burton kind of vein, and Simon Bisley's artwork would kind of line up with Tim Burton's vision. So, yeah, I get it.
Mhm.
Yeah. It does get a little bit ludicrous towards the end, but it's part of that genre, I suppose. It's an opportunity to. Judge Death has always been a good character for Judge Dredd. It gets to bring Judge Anderson into the book, so it doesn't feel like it's just the two main characters battling over and over and over again. But it is stylized. It's not everyone's cup of tea.
No.
Well-
Why did Batman have white hair in here too? Like he had the white temples, so that threw me off. I was like, why you got the Reed Richards / Superman dude going?
Well, artistic license.
And this is Simon Bisley had already done Lobo at this point, so he had a huge fan following in America at this point. And so he was really kind of the natural choice to do this book. And I think it looked great, even though Bisley is really kind of an acquired taste, right?
That's the phrase I was looking for. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's super stylized. It's super detailed in places. It's over the top. It is what it is. It's just a change of pace to, It's interesting. This came out in 92. The last book came out in 78. What's that? 14 years difference. Look how different.
Yeah.
Just look how different the art could be. All right, there you go. Excellent. Okay, so there you go. Those are your three books that we've looked at crossover wise. Interesting conversation. Are there any other crossovers, either within or without our usual time frame, that you think, that was really, really good? And yes, Professor, you can say some Amalgam titles if you must, but I'm not going to put any on the screen.
No, because I didn't think Amalgam was that great.
Hey!
Yeah, see,
I think the Marvel versus DC limited series was better before they kind of mashed them all together. The JLA Avengers crossovers is required reading. And the other crossovers, some of them were okay, some of them weren't, But JLA Avengers is the one that's outside the timeline. We would have been talking about it if we did this next year. We would have been talking about this one.
Well, there you go. There's a promise for you. There you go. This time next year, 13th. Your call.
Yeah, no, I mentioned earlier the Batman Grendel. If it wasn't for that crossover, I would have never known who Grendel was, or maybe stumbled upon him in a different light. Because back then, Comico, Dark Horse, I really didn't venture into those books. So because of that team up, I was like, I need to learn more about Grendel. So that opened that doorway. Let's not forget too. There's Batman, Captain America. I believe Batman Hulk. That's the classic one. That is a very much debated battle between Batman and the Hulk.
Batman Predator.
Yep, exactly. So there's a whole host of good crossover comics that are out there, but we covered some classics today.
Yeah. It's interesting when you go back and you kind of go over them. It is a little bit. It can be a little bit jarring, like the art on Judgment. Or it could be a little bit jarring because the characters just don't seem themselves in other times, in other places. But
can you foresee a Batman who laughs with death?
How can you tell who's who?
Well, that's what would make it funny.
Maybe they could do another Batman Judge Dredd crossover with Judge Death and Batman who laughs, and the two of them can be pointing at each other.
If DC's listening to this and think, hey, that's a good idea, I want no credit for that at all. All right? None whatsoever. You can donate my creative chunk of the slice of the pie to charity because I ain't having anything to do with that. Not at all. Killing me, man.
I'll tell you what, I am a fan of the Dark Side Galactus. Big villains, but that's a great idea. So I wish they would have done more of the showcasing the villains. To your point earlier, Johnny, with Thanos, with somebody, would have been nice to see, or some other, even Doom. We already saw Doom here with the Parasite today, but just some big villains from any of the publishers would have been nice.
So who would Thanos? Who would be the Thanos? Who would be DC's version of Thanos?
Mongol.
You think?
Both created by Starlin. They look the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Mongol's got no character. He's not. He's just a space thug. Thanos has got.
That's DC's fault for not fleshing him out. He was Mongol could be DC's Thanos.
Yeah. One of the things that got me excited in the 90s, although the story, can go either way, it was the Kyle Rayner Green Lantern and Silver Surfer that kind of opened up the doorway for the Marvel versus DC storyline. So it is that was interesting to see, because those two characters would make sense together. But
all right, so he's one more before we go. Then, who would, if we're talking big villains, one side Joker, who would you team up with in Marvel world?
Interesting. Green Goblin.
Oh, yeah, I could see that. Which one? Harry or Norman?
Norman.
Okay. Just checking. Yeah, that could work. 13.
I don't know. Be interesting. Maybe Venom, original.
Oh, the original Eddie Brock. I want to eat your brains, Venom.
Yeah,
good shout as well.
I would buy that.
Yeah, it's a Joker. All right, okay. I've got Joker fatigue. Sorry. Okay, so that's it for this show. Don't forget to check out all your other great podcasts we have on the UCPN, including Professor
No Prize Podcast, all about Marvel comics
and Marvel shows, right?
And Marvel TV shows. We talk about them a lot now too. So.
All right. Cool. Excellent. And of course, don't forget TDC, the Definitive Crusade, where you get to talk everything DC. And you saw the advert earlier for Flipside to scratch your indie itch. There you go. All right. So, gents, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Had a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Hans, thanks for the shout out. Although 13th wasn't happy you made him read Judgment on Gotham. So I'm holding that against you, not me. All right. And so this is Johnny the Machine Hughes. As always, adios.